Welcome back, boxing fans. It's funny the channels on YouTube that consistently, always making everything about race. Yet, predominantly, these channels are the main culprits for exposing their own racism, right? We just had Anthony Joshua on a huge card in Saudi Arabia where literally Zhang and Parker was in the undercard, as well as many other world title fights and top level opponents on the undercard as well, in a real deep card that actually went from 11 o'clock at night all the way until 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So it was a long, long day of boxing. AJ obviously highlighted by fighting Francis Ngannou in a fight many people were predicting that AJ was going to get beat in because AJ is broken. He has no chin. He's overrated. He's not that good, according to many. This was the same Francis Ngannou that many people feel beat Tyson Fury. The same people, lots of these people have consistently capped for and talked about how AJ could not and would not beat Tyson Fury. The same Tyson Fury that made his name beating Klitschko in easily the best victory of his career, and then dominating, destroying Deontay Wilder on multiple occasions. Ironically enough, Joseph Parker, who recently just beat easily Deontay Wilder on another undercard from Saudi Arabia, was on this fight as well and came through again, upsetting the apple cart by beating Zhang in a fight many people felt he would not be able to win. So that's two very significant victories back to back from Parker. For Wilder's point of view, he may never fight again. And ironically enough, many of us that follow boxing and aren't only here capping and pushing racial narratives consistently on our channels, we've seen the fall of the PBC. And some people want to defend and make excuses and, dick ride this promotional company. And that's cool. You can promote and fanboy for whoever you want. But the irony is, as I said in a recent video, what's the next generation of PBC fighters? These same people were trying to make excuses about Canelo Alvarez leaving. Yet they're the same people that glorified and praised the PBC when Canelo went over. And now, of course, the Canelo went back after leaving. Now they're all over Canelo Alvarez and his contribution to the PBC once again. This just shows you the desperation, the smell of desperation that comes from these guys, because they act like losing Canelo don't mean anything, but yet when they get him back, wow, they're overjoyed. So today I saw that 78 came out and clapped back at Anthony Joshua fans who jumped back onto his bandwagon. And it's always the same from dudes like this, literally always the same. These are the same dudes that jumped on the Deontay Wilder bandwagon only after he became a world champion. Prior to that, they were not dick riding him. And the majority of these LDBC channels that do dick ride and did dick ride Deontay Wilder, most of that happened only afterwards. Only after the LDBC really got behind them and they started pushing all this fake narrative about how AJ was the one ducking Wilder. AJ's the A side. He was the A side. He still is the A side. He's always been the A side. Anthony Joshua has always been the guy leading the way in the heavyweight division. Unfortunately for these guys, they wanted to make it as if that was always Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder who opened up the heavyweight division. Well, no, there's nothing farther from the truth. Deontay Wilder did not open up the heavyweight division. He won a vacant title after Klitschko retired. Fought a guy who beat a dude that got injured in the ring, never made a successful defense, beat him, and then went on to fight a bunch of scrubs who were top 10 ranked. And when they say top 10 ranked, they don't mean top 10 heavyweights. They mean by the WBC, these fighters were top 10 WBC ranked. Anyone that follows boxing and is a hardcore knows just because you're top 10 by one sanctioning body does not mean fucking anything. It doesn't mean you're one of the best fighters in the sport of boxing. But yet that's how they tried to fanboy the level of competition that Deontay Wilder consistently fought. Only once Deontay Wilder actually fought a legitimate top 10 fighter in Luis Ortiz did they feel vindicated, justified, that finally they fought somebody legitimate, somebody that Wilder, or sorry, AJ ducked, even though how did AJ duck him? When AJ had three mandatories because he had three belts, he couldn't necessarily fight every single mandatory at the same time. It's not his fault that Ortiz chose to leave the zone and Matchroom to go over to the PBC. And then when he was offered to come back over to DAZN to get a career high payday, he chose not to take that money, only to continue to fight at lowball fees under the PBC. I wonder how he's kicking himself in the ass right now because he's still fighting on marginal cards that nobody's even seen on television. That's literally what Ortiz is doing now at 40 years old, fighting on non televised fight cards. But make your bed, sleep in it. That's the way it goes, right? He's not the only person or the last person that represented the PBC that went down this line. We saw AJ offer Wilder huge cash, and only when they refused to negotiate with his promoter did the DAZN executives end up stepping in and negotiate directly with Wilder and his team, only to be rejected for over $100 million. Wilder ended up coming out afterwards saying that he took less money to rematch Tyson Fury. But yet somehow these guys still act as if it was AJ's team that was ducking. And now, of course, that Wilder ended up losing to Parker. Oh, AJ should have fought him regardless. So you're going to fight a dude who just looked like complete garbage. Complete garbage. Wilder looked fucking terrible in that Parker fight. Wasn't effective at all, allowing Parker to easily go in there, manhandle him, and win in a 12-round decision in a fight that was hard to watch at the best of times. But we see who ended up going on, getting bigger opportunities and moving forward from that victory. Parker. Wilder has continued to clout chase, continue to act as if he deserved something. And that's always been his victim mentality and the people who supported him, acting as if he deserved something. He didn't have to earn it, he deserved it. Why? Well, because he's a king, right? And these dudes literally fucking call him a king, which asks to beg the question, what's wrong with these people? Deontay Wilder is an athlete who doesn't really give a fuck what you have to say, is only in it to put money on the table of his family. But you guys take ownership as if somehow he's representing you. And that's fine. If you want to take that route, that's fine. The irony is, I've been an AJ fan from day one. I'm a day one. And I've never lost interest or support of Anthony Joshua, even though you go through highs and you go through lows as a fan. The same thing with Lomachenko, Manny Pacquiao, Golovkin, Roman Gonzalez, Donald Curry, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali. Whenever you're a fan of a boxer, you ride the highs and you ride the lows. And that makes the highs that much better when a guy ends up coming through and proving himself at the highest level. Now, what AJ has done, he's put himself back into the conversation for a potential Fury Usyk undisputed unification fight, right? That's something Deontay Wilder only wishes he was in the conversation for, because there's no money on the table from Saudi Arabia to make that fight anytime soon. There's been talk about him fighting all kinds of opponents, none of whom are going to generate him that much money moving forward. And we'll see. I'm not a hater. I wanted to see him bounce back, potentially against Big Baby, right? Both guys coming off of losses in Saudi Arabia, put that fight together. Both guys could get good money. The winner of that ends up moving forward in the heavyweight sweepstakes, right? This is a real boxing fan that just wants to see real boxing. I don't need to push narratives, fanboy, and dick ride and act like fucking everyone else is a problem and I'm the solution. But that's what we get from the LDBC. Let's listen right here from one of the main LDBC channels that consistently pushes this kind of narrative.
Fugazi, Anthony Joshua fans. What I mean by that, I talked about this already, but I'm gonna speak on it again because some people have a misunderstanding of what I'm saying. Uh, the fake Anthony Joshua fans I despise. Fake fans, period. Not just Anthony Joshua fans, but fake fans, period. Like, dude,
And the funny thing is, when we talk about fake fans, probably most of the fake fans on YouTube come from the LDBC, because we know these guys are only here capping for cash. These guys push racial narratives consistently. Why? Because that's what generates super chats and obviously AdSense to their channels. They always have to be controversial. That's why they always talk about the same narrative again and again and again. That's why these guys dick rode fucking Deontay Wilder, Fury, Glovegate like a fucking thoroughbred stallion. They rode that horse from the fucking start till the end. They wouldn't get off that ride. And then, of course, they jumped on the Wilder, or sorry, the Errol Spence, Bud Crawford situation. And the majority of these guys hated on Bud Crawford, a black American fighter, more than any of these so-called racist YouTube channels that often get pointed at, right? These dudes hated way more than anyone else against a fellow black American. All to do what? Cap for somebody that was paying them money to fanboy for their promotional company. And now, of course, we see the same thing going on with Devin Haney versus Tank Davis. These guys create this racial narrative. These guys create this back and forth. We saw this obviously with Wilder and AJ, the whole back and forth between UK and American fans. And these guys act like it was all AJ's fans. Yet we remember specifically who started the beef and who was calling guys like AJ a slave and who was calling people like Eddie Hearn a slave master. These dudes using explosive vernaculum to create a racial narrative consistently, right? And this is between two black fighters, yet somehow race became an issue. With Spence and Crawford, somehow race became an issue. Don't ask me where race came from. Originally, it was because Bob Arum, but when Bob Arum was no longer involved, they still created this issue, even though there was no justification. And now, obviously, you have Tank Davis and Haney. I have no idea how race is going to be used in this narrative, but I guarantee you it will because it always is.
who's running around the internet talking crazy about everybody. This guy beat this person. This guy knocked everybody out. Blah blah blah. After Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz back in the day, I saw the people who had been pushing Anthony Joshua the most abandoned him immediately. The same night they was making videos laughing at the dude.
Listen to this. He points out a few people that were never really fans of AJ, but probably were more Deontay Wilder and LDBC haters to sort of paint with a broad brush. Yet we've seen tons of guys do the same thing, rejecting Wilder, rejecting Spence, and don't be surprised when the same thing happens with Devin Haney, right? Because you're always going to have fickle fans who are not really fans, but just dick riders and guys that love to get in on the argument, right? And want to be the winner, even though they have nothing actually involved in the debate at all, right? This is the same people who were dick riding Floyd Mayweather back in the day and were so happy when Floyd got the victory against Manny Pacquiao, as if somehow they got the victory. Guys like this, that's how petty they are because they're not real boxing fans. Because if they were, they wouldn't need to be falling into this rut time after time after time because they would want the best to fight the best. And then they would understand somebody is ultimately going to lose, whether that is a Deontay Wilder losing to a Fury, whether that's AJ losing to Usyk, whether that's Spence losing to Bud Crawford, whether that's Devin Haney losing to Lomachenko. The reality is, when you get the best matchups, somebody's going to lose. And that shouldn't dictate or be something that creates this animosity and us against them mentality. Because the truth is, as fans, what we ultimately want are the best fights. And at the end of the day, you can only walk away respecting both combatants for actually stepping in the ring and taking on one another. That's why when I talk about Haney losing to Lomachenko. I don't hate on Devin Haney because it has nothing to do with Devin Haney. The scorecards, the fanboy mentality that we hear all over the internet. Devin Haney is just doing his thing. He is dick riding and kowtowing a little bit too much to the LDBC. But, you want to align yourself with the LDBC, then align yourself with the LDBC. That has nothing to do with me. Deontay Wilder, for his point, the same thing happened. We all told you inevitably he's going to get beat because you cannot always rely on landing the big punch. And inevitably, that's what happened. We didn't hate on Wilder because we understood Fury was a very good fighter. We've seen him upset the apple cart when he beat Klitschko, right? So it wasn't a surprise when he beat Wilder. The difference was we knew the first fight he wasn't ready for. He was inactive, came off of a long hiatus, and it wasn't the best version of Fury. And we ended up seeing the best version afterwards, who ended up going on to easily manhandling and stopping Wilder on back-to-back fights. For Spence, we said all along that Spence probably wasn't the same fighter after his car crash. But people downplayed it, ignored it, and thought that it was just somehow hate, even though how is a guy almost dying in a car crash hate? That's truth. And to expect that he's not going to be the same fighter that he once was is just common sense. So I don't hate on Spencer getting beat by Bud Crawford. I knew Crawford was going to win, especially against that version of Errol Spence. And I wouldn't be surprised if Errol Spence never fights again. And he doesn't need to.
Talk about, oh, I knew Wilder would beat him. Yeah, he lucky this wasn't Wilder. All kind of stuff like that. After years, after 6, 7 years of riding this man's strap, his jock strap, right? Acting like he just invincible and he would destroy Wilder. He'll do this. He'll do that.
See, and once again, he's accusing AJ fans of doing what Wilder fans have done. They've loved to jump on the narrative that Wilder was going to knock out AJ. Yet then Wilder got knocked out twice by Tyson Fury. And then just got beat recently by a guy that AJ already beat in Parker. I've been consistent. I always felt stylistically Wilder probably would beat AJ, and that Fury would beat Wilder, and that AJ would beat Fury. Because when you talk about great matchups in the sport of boxing, often that's the way it unfolds. Styles do matter. But with this guy, he doesn't care about styles or the sport. This is a guy that admits that he was a fucking lunatic fucking Tyson fan back in the day. You couldn't talk to him about it. You couldn't you couldn't have a conversation about it. And now we see the same thing going on with Wilder and obviously Haney and Spence. Dudes like this are narrative driven. You can't have normal conversations. You can't have rational conversations where people have difference of opinions. Because with guys like him, there is no difference of opinion. We've seen this from the LDBC from day one. Either you roll with our narrative or you get blocked. You never were allowed to have your own fucking opinion. You were never allowed to have your own take on a situation. You had to be a united front, us against them. Because when all of this gets down to it with these guys, it's all about racial inferiority, right? It's all about this victim mentality. And that's why these guys fight tooth and nail, scratch and claw, because they really feel their person has something to lose with regards to this. Where the truth is, it's sports. It's not about your race or whatever you're hanging on this pedestal that you want to bow down to. The truth is, we watch sports all the time. And the majority of time, people don't make it about race. But unfortunately, we have that other 10% of time where people do. You see this now going on with that female basketball player whose games sell more than the WNBA, who makes more money than any player in the WNBA, who's going to be the number one draft pick in the WNBA, and actually is going to bring a lot of investment and attention to the WNBA. But already from within the WNBA, They're hating on this girl because she's white, right? And the only reason she's getting attention is because she's white. Yet we've seen tons of WNBA players come from college that were white that didn't get this kind of buzz. It's the same thing you see with boxing, where people talk about the great white hype. The only people pushing great white hype generally are black people, generally, because no one else fucking cares. No one is looking for the next great white hype because it's never been an issue. People didn't feel inferior. People didn't feel that they needed to prove something based on a fighter that represented them. And that's the difference.
Soon as the man lose to Andy Ruiz, y'all abandoned him. You left. You got Ghost.
Then he came back and beat Andy Ruiz easily in the rematch. And then lost to Usyk, who many people consider the best fighter in boxing. And ironically enough, if he does beat Fury, that's only going to solidify AJ above Wilder, right? That's probably something that ultimately scares and threatens you as well. Because if Usyk beats Fury, the man that you fucking made excuses about, that tried to justify Wilder being robbed against, will get beat by the guy that AJ lost to. We know that the Andy Ruiz fight, those things happen. People get caught. We've seen Lennox Lewis get caught. We saw Tyson get caught. We've seen tons of great fighters in boxing history get caught and bounce back. So Andy Ruiz is just a bleep. But what happens afterwards tells the real tale. We'll have to see what AJ does moving forward with the rest of his career. And ironically enough, he has a rest of his career. Wilder at this point, is anyone even talking about Wilder?
Because you didn't want to deal with the trolling from the Wilder fans, right? So you abandoned him, and that's what cowards do. Now,
This coming from 78 and the LDBC, who literally will block anyone who has a different opinion than them, because that's what cowards do. Cowards block people that have difference of opinions because they can't fucking have a rational conversation.
magically, well, actually, they left. They left him after the Ruiz fight. Some of them came back when he outboxed Ruiz in the rematch. But once he lost those two fights to Usyk, uh, they were gone. What looked like to be for good. All right. AJ came back, won a few fights. He beat Jermaine Franklin. Right. People said AJ was done. Right. Deontay Wilder was asking to fight AJ at that time. People, AJ fans like Tony Bellew and others were running to YouTube and all these other.
But listen to this. So, at AJ's lowest point of his career, where he lost back to back fights to Usyk, was going through several trainers and struggled against a mediocre opponent in Franklin. That's when Wilder and his fanboys were pushing for the fight. Right? That tells you everything you need to know because these guys literally based their whole name, their whole reputation based on being better than AJ. Right? We the baddest black man in boxing. We're not the baddest man in boxing. That's the two white guys, Usyk and Fury. But we the baddest black man in boxing, right? That's the level that these guys have fallen to, where it's no longer about being the best fighter in boxing. It's the best black fighter in boxing. Yet, truth still fucking remains. AJ's career at this point far exceeds Deontay Wilder. AJ is a two-time unified heavyweight champion. Wilder is a one-time belt holder. Right? We know whose resume is better. We know who's been knocked out more, Wilder. And we know who has bounced back and put himself back into the conversation for big money fights moving forward. That's AJ. AJ is still relevant, whereas now at this point, Wilder's irrelevant, which is why a guy like 78 needs to keep clout chasing off of AJ, tying Wilder's name and recognition to Anthony Joshua. But Anthony Joshua just had a huge victory against Francis Ngannou. People can downplay it, say it was a UFC fighter, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is, we saw this same UFC fighter arguably beat the guy who beat your favorite fighter. And that must be difficult to fucking swallow. Because the truth of the matter is, your fighter lost to a guy who just arguably got beat and dropped by an MMA guy. The same MMA guy who just got destroyed in 2 rounds by Anthony Joshua. Destroyed.
The guys, Johnny Nelson, all of them. AJ's not ready for Wilder. He doesn't need to fight Wilder. He doesn't. AJ needs to get more confidence back. He doesn't need to fight Wilder.
Why would everyone expect Wilder and AJ to fight after AJ came off of back-to-back losses and was looking incomplete, going through multiple trainers? Is this the kind of victory that would somehow crown Wilder the best fighter in boxing? You know, the reality of the situation is, we know why he's chasing AJ the same way Fury is chasing AJ, the same way everyone is chasing AJ, because that's where the money is, because AJ is the name to the heavyweight boxing division. And even coming off of a loss to Parker, they still clout chasing, hoping that they're going to get that big money fight, the fight they literally walked away from multiple times. And then they want to twist it now and go, oh, how come AJ didn't fight him coming off of that Franklin fight? Because AJ don't need Wilder, never has needed Wilder, never will need Wilder. Wilder, unfortunately, is the one who's needed AJ from fucking day one. Yet instead of chasing that opponent, going to that opponent, he ran away from it and got fucking knocked out, humiliated, and now is at a low point of his career where he's having sex with his brother's wife, preaching the use of drugs to get over, your mental insecurity after getting beat back-to-back fights by by Tyson Fury. Literally, all the guys these guys fanboy for, their careers are over. Errol Spence, his career is fucking done. No one expects to see Errol Spence in a significant fight ever again. He literally just walked away from a Bud Crawford rematch. Nobody expects Deontay Wilder in a significant fight moving forward. So now what did they do? They tied their fucking horses to Devin Haney. And they hope Devin Haney is going to help carry their YouTube channels forward for the next 5 years. I don't know if that's going to happen. They might have been smarter to tie their horses to fucking Tank Davis. But the reality of the situation is, it is what it is. These dudes consistently push the same BS on their channels. And unfortunately, this BS is running low. There's not much left in the gas tank.
He's not ready for Wilder. That's all we heard. I made several videos talking about how disgusted I was with these people telling this man not to fight Wilder, right? All right? They said AJ got to look good first. AJ needs to look good. So,
and in truth, if you want to sell a big pay-per-view fight, it probably means both guys need to look good to generate a buzz, right? That's why right now the Fury AJ fight has a buzz, because AJ's looked good beating 2 opponents that Fury looked bad against. So now the possibility of that fight happening and actually being competitive is at an all-time high once again, which is why people are excited about a Fury AJ fight. Nobody is excited about a Wilder AJ fight because Wilder is irrelevant. Literally irrelevant. He lost to fucking Parker in a fight where he looked like complete garbage. Complete garbage. But you guys are still praying you can get the big payday. But yet AJ's moved on. He got a big payday fighting Francis Ngannou, and now he's put himself in position to fight the winner of Usyk Fury. And people are crossing their fingers, hoping it's Fury, because that is a huge pay-per-view fight. Why? Because arguably it's competitive. And that's what guys like this don't understand. Fighting a guy at a low point of his career does not make for a successful pay per view.
So AJ continues to fight lower class guys and he wins, right? He's knocking guys out. Now he beat Francis Ngannou, who is not a boxer, but did well versus Tyson Fury because Tyson Fury um, underestimated him. But nonetheless, AJ stopped him in the second round. Phenomenal performance by AJ. So now all these people magically have returned swinging from the pews of Anthony Joshua.
And look, with dudes like this, it always has to be homosexual references, right? It always has to be put to that position, right? Because that's where this guy and his followers and fanboys are, right? Always at this lowest denominator. The reality is, the reason people are jumping on this fight now is because it's back to a position where it's an exciting possibility between two top fighters in boxing. And now the possibility of it being a competitive fight and not knowing who will win is there. The same reason people weren't pushing for AJ and Fury to fight after the Franklin fight is the same reason why people weren't pushing for fucking Wilder and AJ to fight, because it wasn't an interesting fight at that point. AJ looked vulnerable. He did not look at the top of his game, but now he does. So now people are hopeful and excited about the possibility. And unfortunately for guys like 78 and the LDBC, they're pissed off because their man is not in the fucking negotiation. Deontay Wilder is nowhere to be mentioned because he dropped the ball. He dropped his opportunity. He got beat by Parker, a guy that was handpicked, cherry-picked, and given to him by Saudis. And he unfortunately is so shot and so past his best that he couldn't even beat that version of Parker.
Okay. Now, guys I haven't seen on my page in years, I'm talking 3, 4 years, haven't gotten a comment, hey, what's up, 78, nothing. Now they magically popping up on my page talking about AJ, right? Bro, just get out of here, bro. You dudes are so disgustingly fake to me, bro. For real. And this is why people despise the LDBC. You know why? Because you
Why do people despise the LDBC? Because there's no group of boxing fans, so called boxing fans, that are more fake than the LDBC. A group of people that accuse everyone of being racist, yet barely talk about any aspect of boxing outside of racial, controversial back and forths. Literally talk about 6 fighters, and that's all. Ignore all the rest of what's good about boxing, all the harp on the negative and the most dirty, disgusting aspect to the sport, so they can continue to have back and forths and create this back and forth consistently where they release the same video day in and day out. You can check this out and see for yourself. I mean, you go to channels like BFTB and guys like this, 78, and it's the same old crap, video after video after video. Nothing is changing, right? Here I jump to, right, Dante's Boxing Nation. And it's like, fuck Canelo. That's when I knew I got knocked out in Ngannou. Canelo now pissed off. Jim Lampley tells us why Canelo versus Benavidez isn't happening. Devin Haney is refusing to give blood work, allegedly. Devin Haney gets stopped. Canelo can't believe what HBO's Jim Lampley just said. Kanye West possessed by Satan, says Ryan Garcia. The most disturbing KO in recent history, AJ Ngannou. Ryan Garcia comes out of the closet and says some racist shit. Terrence Crawford versus David Benavidez fight. That needs to happen next. See, the same old stuff. We're talking about what? Ryan and Haney, because these guys love Haney. Canelo, who they hate, but they love when they can push his benefit to PBC. And literally, that's the only things they're talking about. Oh, and Bud Crawford, according to Floyd Mayweather, facing David Benavidez, as if that's a real fight that has to happen. But yet you go through and it's the same stuff. Canelo, Ryan, Benavides, Canelo, Haney, and Garcia. Literally, you can scroll down and see these guys put out the same content every day, yet accuse everyone else of lacking imagination, lacking boxing content. Yet I just made a video talking about William Zepeda's fight card this weekend. These guys don't even know who William Zepeda is unless they're going to make a video talking about him being the next great white hype and how he's media created. He's media created, that he's just a flat-footed Mexican fighter that's not good and is not entertaining. You know, who knows what narratives they're going to come out with, right? But unfortunately, we've seen this show time and time and time again from these channels. Go watch fucking Fanon Boxing. Fanon is the same as all these LDBC as well. It's just the same old crap day in and day out, talking about the same old tired fucking topics. They're going to talk. He's going to talk, of course, about Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, and of course, Canelo Alvarez. So here we go. What's he talking about? Oh my God, he's still talking about Errol Spence and Bud Crawford. Errol Spence rematch Crawford news update. This is 1 day ago. Garcia getting on Devin Haney fight canceled. Tank Davis team revealed Devin Haney information. Shocker, Andre Ward truth about Canelo Alvarez. Truth. Can Joshua beat Usyk in the trilogy? Trouble. Ryan Garcia mistake. Yeah, same old crap. Strange. Javante Davis tune up against Frank Martin. Ryan Garcia still staying crazy shit. It's the same stuff. Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Canelo Alvarez, Spence, Bud Crawford. 6 fighters, right? You notice you don't see one fight talking about the William Zepeda fight. Even though William Zepeda is a potential opponent for Shakur, Lomachenko, and Tank Davis. But you can't make this shit up. It is what it is. It's always the same. If you've watched YouTube boxing for as long as I have, you've checked all this shit out. You know these guys are not legitimate boxing channels. They consistently only fucking clout chase and push racial narratives, pushing their victim mentality and their insecurity to try to make money off of AdSense and get the people that follow them, who are also insecure, to throw them AdSense money and super chats. And if you're one of those people throwing them super chats, congratulations, you're funding the monster. Because if you really want to know anything about boxing, you're not going to go to these channels, because you're not going to learn anything new. You're not going to find out what fights are happening. You're not going to have a prediction on who's going to be fighting this weekend. And you're not going to have any post-fight videos talking about how the fights played out and what we can see moving forward in these guys' career. Because these guys really don't know fucking anything about the sport of boxing. 78 is more focused on Milwaukee and why they're not going to win the NBA championship in 2024. That's what he's focused on, more so than anything. Because Deontay Wilder is, and Errol Spence is, and I don't think he really rolls with Devin Haney like that. We will see. But leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Peace out and enjoy your weekend, everybody. Stay tuned this week when I come up with post-fight breakdowns and previews. Later this week, live near you. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.